Linux Action Show is created by Jupiter Broadcasting. It's sponsored by Ting. Go to last.ting.com to save off your first device or plan. And DigitalOcean. Go to digitalocean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, all one word like you're slurring it, and spin up your own Linux rig for free. And Linux Academy. Go to linuxacademy.com/unplugged and invest in your mind while saving some money. Welcome to the Linux Action Show, episode 413. My name is Chris.
My name is Noah.
Hey, Noah, standing right next to me. Welcome to Linux Action Show, episode 413. Did you want to...
No, I just look at it.
Do you want to hear? No, come on.
Right.
It's real. It's not even virtual. It's real. See, we can prove it. Even though in some shots, it kind of looks like he's not in the same room as me.
Yeah, except I can reach
Yeah,
over.
he's here. So coming up on this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, you know you've been waiting for it. It's our review of Ubuntu 16.04, one of the most anticipated releases of Ubuntu, I would say, since 12.04. It is a major release with fundamental new features like snap packages, ZFS support, and a bunch of really good derivatives that maybe even are better than the main. We'll talk about that.
Okay.
I don't want to get anybody upset. Plus, talking about Ubuntu, there's a little bit of Ubuntu news this week in terms of cloud coverage, or you might say cloud dominance. We'll go over some of the numbers on Ubuntu's raw numbers in the cloud, plus how Red Hat is making its billions, all Linux, all the time. And is Docker a CIA conspiracy? It's actually not as crazy as it sounds. And then we'll have, of course, some feedback. But before all of that, Noah, do you know what we've got?
We got picks.
We have picks. We've got some great picks this week. Picks that it took us a while to get here. We traveled a long road to find these picks, which I will tell you more about later. But our first one, our Runs Linux, was perhaps the most obvious pick of the week. Even though it was a contentious battle, we went with this Raspberry Pi-powered remote control camera that monitors weather, temperature, and more. And it looks really slick with an LCD screen mounted on top of this thing, Noah. What do you think of this thing?
I think that it is absolutely awesome. And the thing that is neat about stuff like this is that I fully believe that inventions like this just simply wouldn't exist if it wasn't for things like the Raspberry Pi, right? Like, you can go and take you have somebody that says, I'd be kind of interested in having a look at what the weather is like outside, but to actually take that and productize it, is that a word? You have to have inexpensive and available hardware. And so I think this is just another example. And it was funny because like the pick that we were competing with is actually another Raspberry Pi thing, which we might maybe demo in the future.
we could save that one for the future. In fact, it's getting to, you could almost have the Raspberry Pi runs segments.
You definitely could.
And we're not trying not to overdo it, but every now and then a couple cool ones crop through. And, what I think it's really telling us is the Raspberry Pi, even though you guys already know it's true, it's not just hype. It really is bringing average people to experiment and tinker with Linux.
Right. Yep.
All right, Noah, you might not have noticed, but you're standing right next to me. And it's always fun when Noah comes into town because we always try to get a few projects done. And we always end up doing a few extra things like there's a surprise we'll be revealing later. But essentially, like, did you expect to do any of the things we did yesterday? It's like until you got here to the studio. Like, your day, as you probably expected it, didn't even begin until about 8 p.m.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair about it, I don't really have a whole lot of expectations. I expect to show up, and then I told you the other day, I'm a dog in the car along for the ride.
And so we had some fun up at my place, and then after a day of fun, I brought Noah back here to the studio. I took off to try to get some sleep for the show, and I knew Noah and the Beard Rikai would be working on some projects. I want to show you what it kind of looked like after I got back to the studio after, say, I don't know, maybe 6 hours I was gone.
Yeah, and that's nothing. You see the box of trash we did pick up?
Okay. Yeah. So for those of you that are listening, I have a video shot here of the entrance to the Jupiter Broadcasting studio kitchen, which has been converted into a PC build space. And for those of you watching, I'll play a little bit of this.
You can tell Noah's moved into a place after a couple of days, and he's in project mode. This is the kitchen. There's a lot going on here right now. That was the oven over there.
That was the oven.
I think it's now just a place to hold beer and McDonald's. And then over here we have with a PC on the kitchen floor. Of course, you got it. With a new PC build comes a lot of garbage. And a lamp on the floor, obviously. Some more garbage.
There's the pile of trash that we did pick up.
A monitor on a TV tray with some more garbage. Pizza Hut and Coke over there. New egg boxes over there. Yep. Guess what, everybody? Noah's doing a build.
Look at that, dude. That's my kitchen floor. Yeah, it's and the worst part is this is going to be one of the new Linux rigs we've been telling you guys about, and it was kind of rough last night. You guys are working on this thing until about 5 a.m., right?
Again, as usual, nothing ever goes as planned, and so we start working at like 10 p.m. And like around 5 or 6 a.m., we're getting like one PC isn't working, so I'm like, screw this, let's get the next one open. So I just start ripping things open, set the motherboard down, start plugging in, and grab a screwdriver, and then to start the computer up, and realize that you are the only two motherboards on the face of the planet that don't power up.
Yeah, 2 bad gigabyte motherboards back to back.
Gigabyte, there's your keyword.
Yeah.
Gigabyte.
Yeah. But they had some fancy features. But of course, that even though it was a total disaster, the guys had to eat, and that didn't prevent Noah from trying to switch somebody to Linux. So that's this next video here. This is apparently in the middle of the night.
Hello, how you doing today? All right, is this for you?
And I guess, but just so the little background here, the guy here is so you have the Pizza Hut guy, which had no idea what was coming his way. Just as they open the door.
Hello, how you doing today? All right, is this for you? Is he videotaping you?
Yeah.
It's a project tonight, man. We're building Linux boxes. Have you heard of Linux?
Not. What's that?
Linux, it's an operating system.
Oh, okay. So, what type of?
So it is basically an alternative to Mac OS or Windows.
Oh, okay.
I tell you what, when do you work next?
Tomorrow.
Okay, we're gonna order pizza tomorrow, and we will have a Linux disk for you.
Okay.
Would you try it if we gave it to you?
Sure.
All right, cool. All right, sounds good. Take care, man.
I start at 3. Request Tyler.
Okay.
Or Ginger.
Ginger or Tyler? Tyler named Ginger. Got it. Okay.
You guys have a good one.
You too. It keeps going. It keeps going.
You distracted me with the Linux one.
We got so excited about Linux, we didn't care if you left with the food.
He actually started to walk away with the pizza. They forgot to get the pizza.
I would have enjoyed leaving with the food. I am hungry.
What? Hey, actually, here's an even better idea. What time do you get off?
I think like 10, 11.
If we order pizza, would you want to come in and eat pizza and try Linux?
Just show it to me real quick.
Okay, all right, come here.
Real quick.
Are you serious?
So we brought him in, and we sat him down, we set him up with the Librem, and showed him Ubuntu and exactly what Linux can do, and then we invited him back. Now, one small oversight, I'm not going to be here tonight, so I'll have to call Pizza Hut and let him know that we'll have to reschedule, but he's going to come back, and we're going to help him install Linux or get him switched to Linux. So
Yeah, we're not going to be here because right after we get off the air today, we're jumping in Lady Jubes and we're going over to Idaho to pick up Ham Radio, one of our editors, who's going to help us out with the Linux Fest Hall. So we got a lot to talk about first, so let's take a moment and thanks to DigitalOcean. Go over there and go to DigitalOcean.com and use the promo code Here's the Thing, one word like you're slurring it. And that'll give you a $10 credit. DigitalOcean.com is a simple cloud hosting provider dedicated to offering the most intuitive and easy way to spin up your own cloud server in less than 55 seconds. And for only $5 a month, you'll have a Linux rig with 512 megabytes of RAM, a 20 gigabyte SSD, 1 CPU, and a terabyte of transfer. And their pricing plans go up nice and easy from there. They have data centers in New York, San Francisco, Singapore, Amsterdam, London, Toronto, and Germany. And they have the best interface in the business with a straightforward API and a brand new command line utility to make it even cooler. And I know as Noah was approaching the Pacific Northwest, he was conspiring in the background with editor Rikai on new ways to broadcast our streams out to all the things. And Noah, if I'm not mistaken, at the core of this very design was DigitalOcean.
at the very core was DigitalOcean. Yeah, I was in the airport, and of course the internet, they have the phenomenal bandwidth of 1 meg down and 500K up.
Are you like killing like time between flights, or is this like when you landed in SeaTac?
No. Well, that was a mad rush. But when I landed in Minneapolis on a layover, I had like 3 hours. So I was like, well, I should do something. And so I pinged the beard and said, what should I be working on? And so we were going back and forth and decided that we were going to set up some back-end services. And so basically I was able to spin up a droplet at the airport on the airport's crappy, horrible, nonsense Wi-Fi that kicks me out every 15 minutes, and SSH in. And then once I had access to their bandwidth, Then installing the packages I need and getting things set up was no problem.
That's one of my tricks too. Is if I'm in a spot that is like super bad on the MiFi or really spotty for in terms of Wi-Fi coverage, I SSH in using Mosh to my DigitalOcean droplet. Do you ever use Mosh?
I have in the past.
Yeah, Mosh even is like if the Wi-Fi cuts out, I don't lose my connection, and I do my actual work on the DigitalOcean droplet. There's so many things you could do, from building your own cloud instance, from deploying the next web application that's going to be the big thing for your business. DigitalOcean.com is the place to do it. And if you use the promo code Here's the Thing, you'll get a $10 credit. And check this out. You go over to DigitalOcean, they have lots of really good tutorials. I'm liking this. They have tutorials now on how to upgrade to Ubuntu 16.04 LTS, how to secure Nginx on Ubuntu with Let's Encrypt. They have the documentation now on their new DigitalOcean command line client, and an overall topic introduction to configuration management. They have tutorials now on how to set up Let's Encrypt on Ubuntu 16.04. This is the place to go. They're right on top of this stuff at DigitalOcean. DigitalOcean.com. Just use the promo code Here's the Thing. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. Promo code Here's the Thing. Thanks, you guys. And thanks to the audience for using that, for keeping us going. We had a lot to choose from when it came to the desktop app pick. I literally tried 4 different desktop apps.
Are we going to do this now?
Nope.
Okay.
Just for you guys. I went through 4 of them. I tried 4. I investigated and researched 4. And I landed on Altio. Altio is going to take your Gwake up to the next level. It's a drop-down terminal, but it's not like you know it. It has a couple of really super... Oh, hi there. Has a really couple of super nice features, including the really the best multi-monitor support that I've seen in any drop-down terminal. Full stop. If you want to know why you would use this over Uwake or Gwake, if you want a drop-down terminal that's really nice, and you have multiple monitors, this is a really solid choice. It also highlights parts of the terminal header by color. For example, it highlights the usernames and the host names. It adjusts the header of the terminal to make sure everything matches, like if you're using regular expressions. It has alert pop-ups if you want to turn these on. If you're trying to close important quote-unquote applications like SSH or wget, the pattern is customizable, whatever. Your mouth. It has this feature, which I think you might actually like, Noah. Check this out. Delayed closing tabs. So this is an advanced feature you can set to say, when I close a tab, actually delay the closure by 10 seconds. Just in case you go, oh crap, not that tab. It's an option. You can also lock important tabs, which is really cool. And then specifically the multi-monitor support. Altio is started on default, can be configured, which one you want. Individual window sizes and positions for each monitor. And the program contains a follow the mouse mode like Gwake does. After hiding, it can show on all the different monitors with those preset dimensions that you want. And last but not least, what I really like about it is it supports running multiple instances. So you could have the drop-down terminal on multiple windows at the same time. And it has lots of nice features.
And you were explaining how that multiple instances would have saved your bacon.
Yeah, there has been times where I've had updates that have choked. So it's a really nice terminal, and you can see here it has really kind of a cool way with color highlighting to show stuff. It is, in its own right, a very unique terminal. And it has a PPA available for Ubuntu 16.04.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, I know you're kind of a Gwake guy. I'm kind of a Gwake guy. Not really going to get us to switch either way, but... If you're not already married to a drop-down terminal and you haven't really tried one before, I mapped this to Tilde, and it slides right down, and it's very configurable. It has a nice GUI. Everything can be configured within the GUI. So Altio is really nice if you haven't already sort of fell in love with a drop-down terminal. And I kind of get the sense that it's going to go really good if you have an elementary desktop as well.
Yeah, and if you haven't switched to a drop-down terminal, you should do that like yesterday.
Yeah, it really is significantly just like it's one of the best things about your Linux box is that command line environment. In fact, I think it's really too bad that a lot of new users come to Linux and they sort of get the concept of, I got to do everything in the GUI. Yeah. I want to set something up, so they type in like, ZFS RAID config GUI instead of just learning to do it on the command line. And one of the most advanced features you have, and this is why Microsoft spent the time and trouble creating the Linux subsystem for Windows, is the Bash environment. It's one of the most advanced things you have right there, and to have it just immediately available. I will often have droplets that I have work on just in a drop-down right there. I sometimes will have ping just running for like 3 hours in a drop-down just so I can check something really quick. Sometimes I have htop, just a tilde away. I can look at something, tilde, and it slides away. It's like putting the magic genie right one fingertip away.
This doesn't always sound like the most compelling feature, but the terminal is really the lowest common denominator. And so if you can become comfortable with it, it allows you a tremendous amount of flexibility over multiple systems. So there are certain things you can get done with the graphical interface. In fact, I would argue that there's almost nothing that you need the graphical interface these days for, like on the Ubuntu desktop. However,
You want a little background music while I play this video? No, go. Keep going.
But what I will say is that the terminal will allow you to get, if you can get something done on the desktop, you can get it done on your DigitalOcean Droplet.
Yeah, man.
You can get it done on a real server.
On a Slackware box, on a SUSE box.
You can get it done anywhere you are, from your phone, from your laptop,
Yeah.
or your desktop.
Like
Powerful
it.
workstation.
That's the so it's all Oh, and the one nice feature too that I forgot to mention just because I don't use them, but I know a lot of you do. Full on rockin' support for like i3 and tiling window managers.
Oh yeah.
Kind of nice. All right, you ready for a little open source project spotlight, Noah?
I'm ready to light the spots.
So we have something out there in the universe. Say something you depend on. Say something that you've fallen in love with, and then the developer of this open source project gets a little disenfranchised, needs to move along, and your favorite go-to utility for X is no longer supported.
That might be a little confusing. Your go-to utility for Y.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, right, sure. So my point is, we all have probably, if you've been using Linux desktop for a while, had a favorite desktop application or utility that eventually got abandoned. Not a totally uncommon story in open source. But one of the flip sides to that story is because it's open source, sometimes something a lot of us depend on gets picked up by a new maintainer with a new sort of enthusiasm and a new direction, and a project that you sort of had to just sort of wait around and see what happens gets saved. That's what today's spotlight is all about, Noah.
What is it, Chris?
It is Shotwell, the GNOME desktop photo manager that is, for me, just a little bit of photo manager and not too much. It's like one step above using the file system, and that's why I love it. It's just the right amount. Well, good news for Shotwell enthusiasts like me. We have a brand new maintainer. Jens is his name, and he just made an announcement saying he's picked it up, and he's starting today with a new release. Nothing huge. But there's been some nice bug fixes, some low-hanging fruit fixes, and, a brand new release, which is pretty cool. So Shotwell, after sort of dying off, is back with 0.22.1. I have checked, and it's only available today in Arch, but it'll be out everywhere soon, I'm sure. I'm really excited to see that Shotwell has a new project maintainer, and if you, like me, were using this as your photo management solution, it's great. Like, I know Noah, he prefers something like Darktable, right?
Right. Well, so I went to the trouble of purchasing a $1,700 camera, and then I spent like 5 times that much on lenses. So I'm capturing all my images in RAW. And so the first thing I want to do when I bring them in is I want to set the white balance, make sure that's correct. I want to go in and I want to tweak all that stuff. Yeah. And for me, the whole point of shooting in RAW is that I capture that raw sensor data, right? And so, like a simple image manager isn't really going to do it for me. But if I wasn't managing photos like my snapshots on my phone, I could definitely see using something like Shotwell. Like if I was one of those people, like my mother would be a prime example of this. She takes all of her photos on a camera, puts the SD card in, just copies them over to her pictures folder. Now, if that was my workflow, and then she just looks at them like they're done. If that was my workflow, Shotwell would be great.
Yeah, basically my only camera is my phone. That's why I'm really picky about how good of a camera my phone has. And then I use Rapid Photo Downloader or some sync software like SyncThing or Google Photos to get them onto my PC. And then my actual workflow right now is I sync everything using Google Photo because it actually just automatically organizes things for me, even though it's Google. And then the ones I really like, I pull down to a local pictures directory and I use Shotwell to manage those. And regardless of whatever your photo management workflow is, there's enough of us out there that are super excited to see a new Shotwell release. So congrats to the Shotwell team. Welcome to Jens. Welcome aboard, sir, and thank you for taking over the project and keeping it going. Noah, it is days away. It is moments away, Noah. It is hours away, Noah. You know what I'm talking about?
Days. Linux Fest.
You could count that in hours.
You could. It's like I feel like that's like those people that are like, my kid is 755 days old.
I agree. But also, it sounds like the cop out of somebody who is not ready for the ultimate competition that is heading his way. But
yeah, well, that's because somebody isn't practicing for the competition. Somebody is still converting people on the side, like the pizza guy.
Okay, but Team Emma literally just hacked our live stream and brought us down for a moment during the broadcast
because they know that they can't win. They know that they have to they have to rile us up.
Well, we need your support either way. We are expecting a full full-on attack. It's already begun. The dirty tactics. You can join our army at meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. That's our official meeting page. If you're going to make it to Linux Fest Northwest, I would love it if you would go to meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting and go to the meetup for Linux Fest. I also have it linked directly in the show notes. Only 32 people have signed up. Now, Noah, would you say it's a fair estimate to say we probably met 500 people at last year's Linux Fest that said they were there because we mentioned it on the show?
Yes.
And there's 32 people on this meetup page right now.
That is awesome.
That math, that doesn't add up because we are going to meet more than 32 people that heard about it here on the show.
Right.
So that means about 470-ish of you are probably
68.
Okay, all right. Are not signing up at meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. Now, here's why it really matters this year. Because we may need to mobilize the JB audience on a moment's notice. Because our competition is watching the show. So we may have to wait until the last moment. And the best way to communicate with you in our area is via this meetup page. We may need your support. Plus, we'd love to know who's going to Linux Fest. So go to meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. Let us know if you're going to be there. It's important. It's important. It's so important, I may have to shave my mustache.
You'll end up shaving your mustache, but that's what you get for betting against me.
Yeah, that's true. Wait, what? I didn't. The next week's Linux Action Show will be live from Linux Fest Northwest, so do join us. Check jupiterbroadcasting.com/calendar for the live times, but you could probably tune in throughout the weekend and see us live streaming at Linux Fest next week. But we're not there yet, Noah. So you know what that means?
It's time for the news.
Let's do the news.
Hey, it's the news, and this episode is brought to you by
Ting.com. Last.ting.com is where you should go to support this show and get yourself a discount. I am all fired up about Ting right now. I'm like a noob all over again. I love Ting because it's pay for what you use mobile, which is genius.
Mm-hmm.
I was having a conversation with somebody recently, like, oh yeah, no, I would totally have listened to your episode, man, but I'm at the cap of my data.
That happened?
That's a thing. That's like a thing. People have data caps, and I'm like, oh yeah. I remember when I made the decision a couple of years ago, I am never going to worry about that again. I will just pay for what I use. It's a flat $6 a month for the line, and then you pay for what you use on top of that. Now that Noah's back in town, he brought back the Nexus 5 that I let him loan for a while. Mm-hmm. So it's been a while. I have not had an Android M device like that I've used on a daily basis. So I've just reset this Nexus 5 up on Ting, which is awesome. The process of setting up... Oh, yeah, okay. So... Noah doesn't travel without a Ting SIM card.
A spare Ting SIM card, I might add.
So he brings back the Nexus 5, and I'm like, oh, I kind of wish I would have ordered a Ting SIM so I could activate it. And then I know it's like, boom, here's the Ting SIM right here. We pop it in the phone. How many customer service representatives did you have to talk to activate this?
Well, at first I had to go into the Ting store. Then I had to wait in line. I had to sign in on an app on the thing. Then I had to stand in line.
And you had to wait like 20 minutes.
I had to wait 20 minutes.
People.
And then somebody came over, and then they tried to sell me everything in the store.
Yeah.
Before I was... Oh, wait.
Did they tell you about their new DirecTV integration?
They did tell me about the DirecTV integration and all the accessories. No, wait. I just signed in and entered a number, and then we had it activated.
Yeah, literally.
Actually, while you were setting up the show, in between, hey, stand there and look nice. Okay, go back. Stand there, look nice. Okay, go back to work. Okay, stand there, look nice.
As I'm literally framing the camera, Noah was logged into I logged into my Ting dashboard, and I'm like, okay, you do that while I frame the camera. He activated my phone through the Ting website within 3 minutes.
If that, yeah.
Yeah, and
I entered in 2 numbers, and I clicked next, and I went,
literally, his question was like, do you want a new number, or do you want to use an existing number? I'm like, yeah, new number sounds good. Yeah. And then it's activated, and I had a Ting phone before the show starts, and now I'm going to be rocking the Nexus 5 for our road trip, which I'm super excited about. Mm-hmm. And it is so nice to not have to deal with the store, not have to deal with the upsell. None of that. You know, the SIM number is reprinted right here on the big card. Mm-hmm. So once you put the little SIM in your phone, you don't have to pull it out to look at it. You can look at it right here, enter it in the website, you're good to go. Yeah. It's really nice. Ting is mobile that makes sense. No contract, no early termination fee, and you only pay for what you use. You own the devices outright, so you can just move them around between people, no problem. Or, you know, if you got one that like you just want to have like a certain set of data on, maybe only voice or only data or only text, you can set that up with Ting. They have an excellent Ting dashboard app that lets you manage the account right here from the phone, or a great website. It's a killer service, and it's really great for those of you who just have a even the most basic understanding of how a cell phone works. Like, for example, they have a CDMA and GSM network. I could have put this on either or. I chose the GSM.
Well, you didn't really have a choice.
That's true. I actually would have chose here at the studio the GSM. I get like 20 megabits. So
here's the other nice thing about activating the GSM side is now that SIM is activated, that is your Ting SIM, and so you can simply just take that out and move it. If you want to switch phones every week, you just move that SIM card around.
Although, thinking in retrospect, because I'm going to Idaho and what I know about Idaho and the terrain there, CDMA might actually have been a better choice. But either way, it's going to be great. And what I love about it is because I know I'm aware of the differences in the technology, I can make that choice. But even if you don't know, they have two great networks to choose from, and you can bring a device that's compatible and get a $25 service credit. You just have to start by going to last.ting.com. Check them out at last.ting.com. And a big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the show. And thanks to everybody for checking it out. And, the Nexus 5 is still a great phone.
It's amazing how old that phone is and how relevant it still is. In fact, the only reason that I upgraded was I actually ran out of space. And then I wanted more space, so I upgraded. But
this is really cool. One of the things I really like about this phone, the Nexus 5, is I'm getting the monthly Google updates. Oh. So I just got the last Google security update. So it's current as of this month.
Nice.
Which is really cool. And it's a Nexus 5, so it's
That's good for you arch users. That lets you right on the bleeding edge.
Exactly. So go to last.ting.com, and a big thank you to Ting for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. And thanks to you guys for going to last.ting.com. And by the way, while you go there, even if you're not ready to switch yet, you just want to check it out more, they also have a blog that's worth checking out. They got a Plex post up right now, which is pretty cool. They really go into this stuff. Okay, no, it wouldn't be an Ubuntu episode without a little Ubuntu news. Top story in the news this week. Ubuntu Linux continues to dominate the OpenStack and other clouds. So OpenStack isn't dead yet. In fact, OpenStack's getting more and more deployments. Mm-hmm. And Stephen J. Von Nicholas, who I'm sure is a weekly watcher of the Linux Action Show, wrote over at ZDNet, in the latest OpenStack user survey, we see that OpenStack is finally gaining real momentum in private clouds, like on-premises installations, which is actually kind of a big deal for OpenStack. And in those implementations, Ubuntu continues to dominate by at least 55%. So check out some of the interesting things here that Canonical's cloud marketing guy. They got a cloud marketing guy.
Of course they do.
Yeah. Ubuntu OpenStack continues to dominate the majority of deployments with 55% of production in OpenStack cloud. This is a huge number, and I'm going to tell you some of the actual reasons, like how these numbers break down. I think you guys might be surprised. Previous surveys showed Ubuntu at 33%. So this has grown 67%, where Ubuntu was already the market leader. That's a massive growth percentage, according to Canonical. Now, here's some of the different numbers. Red Hat, with its own OpenStack distribution, they've really sort of tailored Red Hat Enterprise Linux to work great on OpenStack. Mm-hmm. It's kind of having a tough fight. Get ready for these numbers. This is really something. The thing about, and even including CentOS, the numbers don't look that much better. Like if you look at EC2, for example, Ubuntu is the number one deployed Linux instance on EC2. Mm-hmm. The number two Linux deployed on EC2 is Amazon's own Linux distribution. Mm-hmm. The number 3 operating system deployed on EC2, Windows. Windows is the number 3 deployed. And then in fourth, and a relatively distant fourth, too, is Red Hat Enterprise Linux. And then in another distant fifth is CentOS.
That doesn't surprise me, actually.
Wait, you're telling me it doesn't surprise you that there are, at least on the Amazon cloud, there are more instances of Windows than there are Red Hat?
No, it doesn't surprise me. Because what is the compelling reason to go, what is the reason that I would install Red Hat on EC2? I can find, if I just want to spend a solid backend services, I'm going with Linux. And if I'm going to do that, I'm going with Ubuntu because they're predominantly heavy in the cloud to begin with, right? And the second most common reason I could see to spin something up on EC2 is if you had some sort of Windows-specific application that needed a backend.
I mean, I'm not trying to be mean, but that sounds like a Red Hat apologist because it is astoundingly embarrassing for Red Hat not to be in the number one position. They are the number one server operating system. They're number one in the enterprise, at least they used to be. Mm-hmm. And you would think that if people are extending their on-premises installation up to the cloud, which EC2 is one of the obvious choices, you would think Red Hat would have, or CentOS even, if we're talking about cost, if we're really talking about price, you think CentOS at least would have been the default choice. In fact, you would think in an era of enterprise Linux where you have Red Hat as a $2 billion company, I am astonished that Ubuntu not only has first place, but a dominating first place with 86,000 instances. And Red Hat? Red Hat, 16,000 instances. That's a monstrous, embarrassing gap for Red Hat, and cost is only a small factor. I think it really
It's not a small factor. I don't think it is a small factor. It's $399 a year per installation for Red Hat support, versus a one-time fee of whatever Windows is, $100, $200 for Windows support, or a free version of Ubuntu. And I think that if you look at those numbers, that follows exactly that scale.
So then why isn't CentOS larger?
What's the advantage of CentOS over Ubuntu?
What's the advantage of Red Hat over Ubuntu?
Support. When you have a large installation of a lot of servers that you need support.
See, in my logic, then a $300 license of Red Hat, when you consider the fact, a $400 license of Red Hat, when you consider the fact that includes a year of support, if I'm an enterprise or a business and this is a production grade system, that is a tiny, 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 tiny cost to run that server. And $400, I'd pay that 10 times over for support on something that's critical to my business.
By the time you get to the point where you have where you have a large infrastructure, you're not talking about one server. You're talking about a lot of servers, and it's not a one-time cost of it's a $400 per server per year. And yes, I agree that in a lot of scales, when you get up to scale, you're talking about $500,000, $1 million or something, for a little bit of downtime. So
okay,
I do understand that.
At scale, I can definitely see your point, but then I think that would just underscore Red Hat's incredible missteps here and missing an opportunity to dominate the cloud.
I do agree that Red Hat doesn't dominate the cloud, but I also don't think that has ever been their target audience, and I think that they are slowly taking steps with things like Fedora Server to try to regain some of that market space.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Fedora Server and their I guess, acquisition of the CentOS project and all of that is them moving in that direction. But it feels like way too much, way too late. And I look at these numbers here and I think to myself, I would have expected CentOS to be much higher in the list, much higher, because your cost argument.
Yeah.
And, to me it seems like, okay, I'm an enterprise. I've been developing for Red Hat for 10 years. Now we're going to pivot to EC2, and I want to be able to maintain the same developer base. I want to pay the same employees. I want to keep writing the same stuff. It seems like CentOS would have been the obvious choice. But I guess maybe the move to Ubuntu just wasn't that dramatic.
I think what it is that I think when you get large companies that have specific software solutions, I think that they tend to write for CentOS large. Like, so for instance, the last big CentOS deployment I did, which eventually turned into a Red Hat deployment, was a college that was doing chemical calculations, and they had a back-end farm that would do these calculations, stuff like that. That software really only ran on Red Hat. But I think that when you look at the majority of businesses these days, or the majority of spin-ups, which is I have an idea, I have a project, I think those people are starting on Ubuntu, and then that simply becomes the natural progression.
This is why, pause you right there. This is why I think Red Hat's new developer-free version with the Red Hat Enterprise subscription doesn't go far enough. Because what you just described is they start on Ubuntu for development, and then because they've started on Ubuntu development, that's what they deploy in production.
Right. See, and it's a snowball because
but in the Red Hat Enterprise, the deal for developers, you could develop it on Red Hat Enterprise with the Red Hat Enterprise network in development. But as soon as you want to move it to production, like you cross some sort of mythical, magical, invented fake line, and now all of a sudden you have to pay $400.
No, that's not fair. You cross the line of I expect something in return from Red Hat now. Right, I want support from Red Hat. That's what you're paying for.
Red Hat needs to move to a Red Hat support on-demand, subscription-free. Maybe you buy it for $400 when you need it, and then you get it for a year. But I think they need this. You get the full product with full enterprise management features, including a login to the Red Hat Enterprise dashboard. You get all of that for free, and then when you want to pick up the phone, that's when you better get a credit card with $400. And the thing, and I think the problem is there's this weird gray period where you're in development and you've got 5 users, 10 users. Is that production now? Is that production? When does it go to production, Noah?
Right.
Is it when it's 1,000 users? Is that when it goes to production?
I mean, to be fair, I would say if you have a single user that is using it for production, it's in production. Right, but I think that it doesn't become necessarily a good investment of $400 a year to support that server until you get a lot of people and a lot of revenue going through it.
I guess what I would love the answer to be, well, this is where Fedora Cloud or Fedora Server comes in, but the transition from that to the other product, I don't see a clear path.
No, it's not. In fact, actually, I've done that, and it's a very bumpy path. Moving things that run on Fedora up to Red Hat almost doesn't work. I mean, in a lot of cases, it doesn't.
Well, speaking of Red Hat, they are obviously still doing just fine despite this particular problem they're facing. There's an article over on the HuffPo which I think is the first time we've ever featured the Huffington Post in the Linux Action Show. And ladies and gentlemen, it was found by Noah. It's an article about how Red Hat became the first $2 billion open source company. And it's an interview with Jim Whitehurst, the CEO.
It's kind of funny that these two are back to back.
No, I mean, it's intentional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not funny. That's called program flow.
Yeah, well, you're like, well, now, never mind. Anyway, so the great thing about Red Hat is, and this is just derailing me, because now it's just going to seem like anyway. So the great thing about Red Hat is, I think that they have, a ton of morale, a ton of ethics, but they have been, if you measure success by money, then Red Hat is one of the most, if not the most, successful open source company ever.
I mean, my comments about the situation, about them getting dominated by Ubuntu in the cloud, that's not any reflection on the company itself, and it's not it's not like it's a problem they're not aware of.
Yeah,
they're obviously aware of the numbers,
and they're doing, taking steps anyway, however effective or not effective. But the cool thing about Jim Whitehurst is, he's a former I suppose, CEO of Delta Airlines, right? And so he lived in a community of a top-down management style where, we have people that we put in suits in offices to make the adult decisions, and then we pass that information down to the children so that they can, work by the law, the rules and stuff that we've set out. And basically, when he got to Red Hat, he thought, I'm going to clean this place up. And he talks about this in his book. He says, I'm going to clean this place up. I'm going to show them how it's done. And then
I'll teach these kids how to run a business.
That's right. And what happened is they taught him, and they totally shifted his paradigm of how he understood how to run a company. And now when they interviewed him and they asked him, how did Red Hat become a $2 billion company? And basically his answer,
I like this one too. So how are you able to embrace openness and vulnerability? First, I was given a gift of extremes. I went from being chief operating officer at Delta Airlines, a classic top-down hierarchical structure, to CEO of Red Hat, a more inclusive, open organization. Some may look at the way we organize Red Hat and think it's an absolute chaos. While in the beginning, I admit it was hard to disagree with that. I ultimately realized that our chaotic culture allowed us to execute extremely well. My personality and skills fit really well with our open culture. I don't mind people telling me when I'm wrong or engaging in debate. I love that.
Yeah. And he continues to say, he says, many corporate cultures still conform to the hierarchical command that control management model for the 20th century business needs. Knowledge workers are driving our economy today, and they thrive the organizations that welcome their opinions. Tap that creativity and award contributions over titles. And so the thing that resonates with me with that, Chris, is that it's a very subtle stab at at taking that old model and kind of saying, you guys are kind of primitive in the way that you think that because you have earned a title, because you have some degree, that makes you more important and more smart and invalidates everyone else's opinions. And he it's a subtle jab at that and saying, that's why we're worth $2 billion. And I think that's really cool to hear that from an open source company and the leader from an open source company.
I agree. All right, so this one was interesting. It's causing a bit of a dust up in the open source world, and it's coming from the mainstream press. I guess this was released recently. The CIA is secretly invested in a couple of Silicon Valley's hottest startups. And one of those, ready for it, Noah?
I'm ready.
Docker. Yeah. So everybody's freaking out. Mesosphere and Docker are very well-funded San Francisco-based companies with valuations over $1 billion. The CIA's In-Q-Tel, which is an investment arm of the CIA, invested in these companies. And the part that's got people kind of upset is the companies tried to keep it a secret. And so they kept it a secret, And it turned out that it came out via some filings, and now everybody's extremely upset. They're making a big deal about it. When you see this, Noah, the CIA investing in things like Docker, does it make you a little nervous?
No.
I mean, we all know the stories of SC Linux and the NSA.
Invented by the NSA. The code was written by the NSA, and yet it has made Linux, particularly Red Hat Linux, fundamentally more secure. So
Oh, you're getting the full for treatment. Thank you, honey. Chicken pot pies in studio.
Rikai, there's one for you too.
Oh, Rikai, yours is here too, Rikai. Look at that.
I got included.
You got a chicken pot
for the
pie.
first time. I get to eat too.
KFC, contact us. Anyways, so we'll save this. We won't eat on the show. We'll eat in between segments. But thank you, darling. Chicken, boy, don't those smell good? Oh, and a little caffeine. Tell you what. This is how you do an Ubuntu review.
You have the best girlfriend.
This is how you do an Ubuntu review, my friend.
Got me food.
So yeah, they have the NSA and their ties to SE Linux.
Yeah.
Do you remember when I asked you who's the other famous company in Silicon Valley that In-Q-Tel has invested in?
Facebook.
Yeah. So maybe there is something to it. I don't know.
No, I guess time will tell. But this idea, this is the great thing about open source and open code, right? There is no way, not that there's no way, but
the code's out there.
Right, and you know what the thing is? But the fact that they've taken contributions from the CIA means that the code's going to be audited all that more carefully. So
True.
No, I don't care.
I know you're excited about this next one, and we've seen people talking about it at conferences. Speaking of Linux Fest Northwest, Cumulus, which is a major name in networking, Dell, Red Hat, and others demo Linux as a full-stack SDDC. Now, that's software-defined data center, I imagine, or networking?
Right. So basically, Cumulus Network has started this belief that it is a silly and irritating paradigm that we have network administrators and we have network administrators and we have network technicians, and so, or system administrators and network technicians. And so you have people that they come up and they say, well, I manage the servers here, and then you have other people that say, well, I manage the switches and routers here. And what Cumulus has said is that is a silly difference to make, because Linux has all the power you need to manage your entire network. And so they make a $30,000 router, a $20,000 switch that you can use for large-scale data centers. And they say it runs Linux. It runs Cumulus Linux, which is...
I guarantee you at Linux Fest, we'll see a demo of software-defined networking.
Right.
Being able to have Linux at the center of a switch or a router at the center of your network core, it gives you the kind of long-term flexibility where it's not crazy to spend tons of money on something like this, because you're not locking yourself into a Cisco solution or something like that.
Well, that, and the other benefit is that all of your system administrators just became network technicians, and now they can work on the switches and stuff. And there is no, well, I don't do Cisco,
It's a big culture issue.
And so now and the thing that is interesting about this article is just imagine what happens when a hardware vendor partners with a major Linux distro, partners with people that believe that Linux belongs at the core of every device in a data center.
Yeah, we're talking about Red Hat and Cumulus here.
Yeah, I cannot contain my excitement for what might come out of this.
You know, it's interesting to see all of this. So we talked at the beginning of the news segment about Ubuntu dominating the cloud infrastructure, and Stephen in there talks about a big part of it is Juju. And Juju is a management orchestration piece of software that allows you right now to just drag and drop server services, and essentially you can build yourself a cloud infrastructure with drag and drop. Imagine, and I'm probably already getting here, Noah, but imagine now when Linux, when part of the things you could, in whatever your app is, if it's Juju or if it's whatever, being able to drag and drop, here's a SQL server, here's a web server, and now here's a switch, and here's a router.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
and it's just, it's all Linux, it's all part of your management orchestration. It's going to make building networks, I mean, I'm sure people out there are already doing it, but from my experience, that would just be a game changer. It's really getting cool. There's a ton of neat stuff out there, and as we are about to go into our Ubuntu review, this portion is one of the biggest portions of Ubuntu that we may do future deep dives into, is its role in infrastructure, its role in networking, its management capabilities. Those could all be future episodes. If you guys are interested, just let us know by leaving a comment at linuxactionshow.reddit.com and look for episode 413, Lucky 413. And let us know if you would be interested in us deep diving in some of the more enterprisey features. But Noah, that's all the news for this week. It's time to finally talk about Ubuntu 16.04. But before we get into our big review of this major release, we're going to thank Linux Academy. Go over to linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Noah, go there right now. Right now. No, not really. I've already gone there. You don't have to.
Okay.
Do you know about Linux Academy?
Let's pretend I didn't know about Linux Academy.
Oh, well, then I'll tell you all about it, Noah.
Okay,
Thanks for asking.
Yeah.
Well, Linux Academy is a platform created by people just like you that are crazy passionate about Linux. Yeah. So they're following all of the latest trends. Plus, they want to help grow the platform by making people more aware and educated about it. And it's a great utility if you want to just sort of challenge yourself, or if you want to improve your skills, or if you want to go get a certification. It's amazing. In fact, they have over 2,364 self-paced courses you can take. They got videos, scenario-based labs, instructor mentoring is available when you need it. Did I mention, Noah? You
But Chris, I don't have a lot of time for this.
Oh, buddy. They got graded server exercises that'll make it real easy to just, when you're spending your time, you're getting immediate feedback. They're not wasting your time. They got availability planners. You can go in there and tell them how much time you've got. It'll automatically generate courseware for you. They've got deep dive nuggets. They're like 2-minute courses all the way up to like 60-minute courses, depending on what you got time for. Plus, they've got entire topics. Like they'll break down Python and say, Noah, it's going to take you 6 hours total to learn Python. Now, if I came to you and said you need a new work skill and it's going to take X amount of time, the fact that you can just quantify it like that is super liberating. Yeah. It makes it actually doable. They have courseware on Red Hat, too. They're great courseware on Red Hat. If you're doing Amazon Web Services, like we mentioned earlier in the show, Linux Academy has some of the best. I mean, all of their courseware is great. Really, all of it. In-depth resources are available. Downloadable comprehensive study guide. 7+ distributions you choose from. Automatically adjust the courseware, but also the virtual machines that they spin up on demand. It comes with your own Linux server. Isn't that cool?
That's pretty awesome.
Enhanced learning plans make it tailored just for you. If you're getting into DevOps, if you're getting into Linux or OpenStack, Android development, they have stuff for you. linuxacademy.com/unplugged. Going there supports this show, lets them know you heard about it here, and gets you our Unplugged discount that we brought to the Linux Action Show.
If I wasn't already a member of Linux Academy, I'd be signing up. You sold me.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
No problem.
It is pretty cool. It is pretty cool. And a big thank you to Linux Academy for sponsoring the Linux Action Show. So, Ubuntu 16.04, the long-term support, the first one since Ubuntu 14.04. And there's
Funny how that works.
Well, for people that don't know, now you do. And there's a lot to talk about. Off the top, the top new features that everybody's a buzz about. The new Software Center is a rework of GNOME software. The whipping boy on this show for years now, the Ubuntu Software Center, has been replaced. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Online search, where it searches Amazon for bras when you type in B, turned off by default.
Yep. Or if you're trying to open Brasseria Disk Creator.
Yes.
And then you get women's bras.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unity Launcher can now be moved to the bottom, which is great for a lot of people.
Now, is that actually a function of 16.04, or is that something that is added on? Because I asked Popey about that, and he seemed to imply that wasn't a function of 16.04.
Let's try it. We'll try it right here on the show. But I think it is actually a function of Unity now.
Okay.
You can also you can move around a bunch of other things like start and you can shut down. So there's a bunch of other things you can now change. They've moved to apt over apt-get, which is a nicer display. ZFS support is baked into this version of Linux once you install the userland application. And the biggest, I think, long-term thing for us, even though ZFS is a huge deal, I think one of the bigger things is snap packaging. Snap packages are part of 16.04, and I think long-term, this is going to be how you're going to get modern applications on a long-term support. And I think that's a really big deal. There's also some AMD ATI Radeon proprietary driver issues, which we might mention later on in the show. So, as is traditional with any major Ubuntu release, there are big flavors based off it as well that are very popular. At the time of this recording, it is April 17th, 2016, and the release, I think, is scheduled for the 21st or 22nd. You're starting to see projects like Ubuntu Mate release their final versions now. So we've been working with Ubuntu 16.04 for about a month at this point. And I have tried the Kubuntu version extensively. I have tried the Mate edition extensively, and I have tried the Unity edition for about the last 3 days, pretty extensively.
Oh, good, because I've been using the Unity edition since January.
Yeah.
And then as of the last couple of days, I've been running Mate.
For about 3-4 days, yeah. So that's where we're coming out with our 16.04 review. Now, up front, I'm just going to disclose my biases up front. I really enjoy using Arch, but one of the things I like about Arch is that once I install it, I generally leave that install for like 2-3 years. And I would love to get there with an Ubuntu LTS, something I could load on my computer and then not have to reconfigure all of the little things, something I could hook up right here to our broadcast production system and leave it for 2-3 years. But a major requirement for me is to be able to install modern applications, things that have been just released, so that way I can demo them for you guys on that week's episode of the Linux Action Show. I think Ubuntu 16.04 actually promises to deliver on this. So this is one of the reasons I've been really excited. Long-term support Ubuntu, a modern kernel, modern versions of GTK, a refined Unity experience before they make the leap to Unity 8, and snap packages with ZFS. Snap packages, in my estimation, could be the secret key to unlocking long-term viability of an LTS for somebody like me who wants modern desktop applications with a stable core. Because snap packages can pull from arbitrary sources, they can be installed within containers, so they might, even if down the road they require a new version of GTK that Ubuntu didn't ship 2 years ago, doesn't matter. Snap packages are above all of that nonsense. So for me, Ubuntu 16.04 promises to be perhaps the Ubuntu release that brings me back. I'm really excited about it. Coming into Ubuntu, what were sort of your expectations on the new release?
So I have used Ubuntu extensively. In fact, I begrudgingly use it as my as a daily driver on a couple machines because I was sick and tired of running into the roadblock of I set people up with Ubuntu and then they ask me questions and then I would go, well, I know how to solve that problem in Fedora, but not really sure how to fix it in Ubuntu. And the only way to really force myself to fix those problems is to experience them myself. So I have been using Ubuntu on at least one machine since about 12.04. And coming into 16.04, I noticed a couple of things. First of all, FFmpeg is no longer this fork thing libav, which makes things like OBS that require actual FFmpeg commands much easier. It also works for Noah, who by just bangs out FFmpeg and doesn't think to do a libav or AV, whatever it's called, avconf. And so actual FFmpeg is there, no longer forked, and that just makes a ton of things easier. Second of all, crypt setup has been a problem in everything past 15.04, I think. And basically what would happen is the crypt setup package was there, but something wasn't right, and so you'd have to reinstall it to get it to actually work, which means that I got bit by this the first time where I upgraded to, I think it was 15.10 actually. I upgraded to 15.10, went into an airplane, plugged my thumb drive in, can't open any of my files because crypt setup isn't there. And so as of 16.04, crypt setup works flawlessly right out of the box, and so I was actually telling Chris, I was giving him a hard time for wanting to do ZFS on his laptop, and I said, one of the big things for me is I just want to be able to plug my drive into another computer if I need to pull data off of it. And then I encrypted my laptop hard drive, and he goes, what about being simple? Well, actually, it is, because if I just plug that hard drive in to another machine, it will just give me a password prompt. I type in my password, and now I have access to the data. Third thing I noticed, as you mentioned, privacy is off by default, so no longer searching.
Online search is off by default.
Searching. And for MPV, I actually get playback controls now. In 15.10...
Oh, yeah, man, that's a weird bug you had.
In 15.04, in 15.10, I could not get MPV to actually give me playback controls on the screen. And so I was just kind of stuck, and it was a real pain.
That's not to say, though, that we've had a bug-free 16.04 experience.
No.
I think maybe you should mention some of the bugs you did run into.
Not at all.
In fact, bugs that are already well known.
So the first big bug that seems to be biting a lot of people is that the screen is flickering. Now, the first person I saw this was actually Popey from Linux Unplugged. And he has this problem with his brand new ThinkPad T450, I think it was. And then shortly after I saw that he was experiencing that issue, I saw that Michael Dominic from Coda Radio was having the same issue with flickering. And now Chris came into the studio this morning, and he's having that problem.
Yeah, it's specifically an Intel problem, apparently.
Right.
Now, you looked this bug up, and it's actually a known issue. And it's not something I've run into on other Linux desktops running Intel graphics. In fact, the same Linux desktops running, say, Arch haven't had this flicker, and I would assume they're probably using whatever's upstream that Intel's providing as well.
Right. So, which is why I don't. I mean, the people like Popey are far more authoritative on the subject than I am. So I'm not second guessing him, but there does seem to be somewhat of a disconnect that it seems to work fine on every other Linux distro except Ubuntu. The biggest problem, though, for me, and actually really a showstopper for me putting 16.04 at this point into production, is when you install it, if you choose the erase entire disk and
A super common setting.
The most common, the thing I do every time I install Linux.
So just to be clear, you've done that, you've booted in the live environment, the Ubiquiti installer launches, you're at the partitioning screen, and you're choosing the common option, erase the disk and install Ubuntu.
Blow Windows away, give me a good operating system. And when you do that, Ubiquiti tries to create swap space, crashes and there's a bug, and we have it linked in the show notes. And basically, you can't go any further, and then you have to start the entire installation over. Now, you actually ran into, I think, an offbit of that, which was it wasn't installing your bootloader.
Yeah, because the way my system is set up, the main drive I'm installing to is actually SDB.
Right.
But the bootloader, for it to work in the installation, has to go on SDA. And when that didn't work, it came up with a screen, which I thought was great. I actually complimented him. Like, I love that Ubiquiti says, hey, instead of just bombing, your bootloader didn't install. Would you like to choose a different drive? But that screen itself became unresponsive, and it would not accept any input. These are sort of, the reason why we're talking about these at the top of the review is these are major showstopper bugs that you might run into during the installation of Ubuntu 16.04 on your system.
Yeah, I will not recommend 16.04 to anyone until that bug is fixed, because that is.
How do you work around it right now?
Personally, I go into I manually partition my drive.
How is it? You're sure? And we verified it on 2 computers too, right?
No, I found the bug. It's not. I'll find it and relink it in the show notes. But
It
there
seems
is
like a big deal to me.
It is a huge deal, and so the only answer I have is that I believe that when is the official launch date of 16.04?
The 21st or 22nd?
So the 21st or 22nd. If it's not fixed by then, then I will truly ding Ubuntu for it.
But either way, I've loaded on 4 systems.
Yeah, I mean, you can get it done.
Yeah.
And the other thing you can do is you can DD the drive, which is what I did on yours. You can DD dev/0 as an input file and then output file of the drive, and then it creates no partition, and then Ubuntu just assumes that it has to install, and you're not erasing and reinstalling, then it works.
So obviously, the other thing that makes the 16.04 release huge, I just mentioned it a moment ago, is its ZFS integration. Now, that's not really user exposed at the moment. There's userland utilities that still have to be installed for you to utilize it. And you still have to mod probe the kernel driver, and the ZFS partition type is not exposed anywhere that's graphical. So it's not in the Ubiquity installer. You can't even use gparted to partition a ZFS drive in Ubuntu 16.04. At this point, it's obvious with the current implementation of ZFS that what Canonical intends you to do is set up a standard Ubuntu system, deploy it to your server, and then when you attach a large data set, a large disk array, or a network attached storage, that's where you would actually utilize ZFS. It's not meant for your home directory or your root partition or anything like that. So yes, you've read the headlines that Ubuntu 16.04 has ZFS. Technically, that's true once you install the appropriate userland applications, but it's not really meant to be set up during installation. And that's probably a good place for it to be. Because this is a long-term support, I would have loved to have seen that option in the installer. Maybe I could fantasize and 16.04.2 or .5 might actually, maybe they'll include that.
Well, really, I think that the appropriate thing to do would have been just to say that we don't offer this out of the box and it's an experimental feature or something like that. And that would not be, it's been pushed and drilled into my head for so long that this is experimental. It's an experiment, or that that is a function of 16.04, and I get to the point where I kind of expected to be able to hit ZFS. That's what I wanted.
Yeah. So you have pulled up. Noah and I both have. I have the Apollo here, and Noah has the Librem here, and we actually have a shot of your machine.
So this is what I was installing.
Let me see. Wait, let's make sure I can pull it up here. Yeah. So I can. Wait, no, you go ahead. You tease it.
So before, when I was originally installing, about the third time we ran into this error, I grabbed my phone and I just took a picture of it. And so this is the error we're getting: failed to create swap space. The creation of swap space on partition number 5. 000 SDA failed, and this is a big deal,
So there it is. So yeah, so you took a little picture of it during the installation. It's not ideal. So let's talk about some of the new stuff though. So just right off the top, we wanted to tell you guys about some of the things that we did run into. But once you get past some of those issues, you do get presented with some nice new features, some real nice new changes. Mm-hmm. I have taken the tact in this review, and I do this from time to time. I actually am hoping that Ubuntu 16.04 could be the release I stay with for a while. So I decided to customize my desktop in a way that reflects that intention. So I've set up my desktop as if I was actually going to use it. I'm not necessarily reviewing its stock anymore. I did, trust me, run it that way for a while. But here is my Ubuntu 16.04 desktop running Unity 7. I've installed the Arc theme, and I've enabled dark mode just because I prefer that. But one of the first things I wanted to show you guys is the new Software Center. Brand new Software Center, something that we have railed on this show for a long, long time. And what they have done is they've extended GNOME software to better reflect their needs. And for that, I actually like it quite a bit. Mm-hmm. For that particular purpose, browsing applications, installing them, it works fast, it's responsive, it integrates with the Unity launcher, it shows icons, it shows reviews, I can double click on a deb, and most times it opens this up and installs just fine. And last but not least, one of the really great things about the new software is it can install firmware for your hardware.
Oh,
that's
cool.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
You, however, not a big fan of the new software.
No, I have run into a plethora of issues. Some of them are a little unfair because, again, I started using 16.04 a while ago, back in January. But even right now, we're on the cusp of the release, and I'm still running into to weird errors where, so for example, the first thing that jumps out at me is like, the installation, and I have a picture of this too, but I didn't pull it up. The thing that tells you that the software is complete is a red circle with a white exclamation mark, and then your software successfully installed. That's not the icon I want to see. Like, every time I see that, I have an instinct to panic. And then I read the message and I'm like, oh, everything's fine. Well, why not have like a green check mark? Or nothing, actually, in fact, would be better. But I do agree that it is more responsive than the old Software Center. But it does kind of feel like they have simply just picked up what Fedora has done. Other, the
They kind of feel like they crammed their thing into this thing.
In, yeah.
I do feel a little bit of that. I feel like it's a good first step, but it does feel a little crammed in there. If they iterated this in 16.10 and then in 17.04, and we really saw something, like this got a little. As long as it doesn't stay like this for the next 3 releases, like Software Center did, I think we're okay. If this is version 1 and they just want to have something for the LTS, I actually like it quite a bit. I'm still using GDebI to actually install packages I download, but I find this to be pretty great. Just a quick aside. One of the things that I did that was extremely, extremely useful for me is I took advantage of the fact that a lot of these Ubuntu flavors share the same repository, and I installed a package called Ubuntu-Mate-Welcome.
Yes.
Ubuntu-Mate-Welcome. And then once I run that on the command line, I do something a little extra that I love a lot called tac software-only. So it's --software-only. You can install this on any flavor of Ubuntu. If you're not on a GTK version, it's going to pull down a whole bunch of deps. Once you run this, you can take advantage of the software boutique that was created for Ubuntu Mate on any flavor of Ubuntu. And this is one of the best ways for you to load software on your new Linux box. They have everything from accessories like Vanity to InPass, Gnote. You can set up Steam. Some of the best open source games out there like Zero AD are available. One click, Minecraft, one click. It'll set up Java for you. It'll add the PPA. It'll install all of it. All of these different things are one click away, like Noah's favorite Darktable.
I used this program he showed it to me one time, and it will be on every Ubuntu installation I ever use, particularly if that person is a new Ubuntu
And what's
user.
great about this, Noah, freaking super great about this, for example, some of these things are kind of a pain in the butt to install. Like Google Chrome is the official Google Chrome. Here's a Telegram PPA, one click, and I have Skype. One click, I have SyncThing. One click, I have the Telegram PPA. The Software Boutique. Install the Ubuntu-Mate-Welcome and then run the Software Boutique. This is one of the greatest experiences for getting a great recommendation of software installed on any Ubuntu out there. And it is a major boon for the Ubuntu desktop. And if you think I'm understating it, you don't understand how important software discovery is to new users.
Well, I think really where it shines is that we have a fundamental problem in Linux of a given standard, right? And it goes back to that old XKCD comic. We have 12 great standards of the world. Let's invent one standard to standardize them all. Now we have 13 great standards. And so what this does is this allows, there's no standard way of installing an application. Sometimes you compile from source. Sometimes you go into the Software Center. Sometimes you download a deb. Sometimes you add a PPA. The nice thing about this is it combines all of them. Google Chrome, I would go to google.com and I would download the deb and I would install it. Telegram, I would add a PPA and then I would install it. Darktable is already in the repositories, but I would install it. And this, I install one program. And actually, I know you were really into the software only. I kind of like the little flashy startup page that has a little animation and stuff, and then you click on software, and then it gracefully transitions to software, and then you type in the package name. It is super, super nice, and it will for sure be on every machine I deploy, especially if that person is a new user, because I can tell them with complete confidence anything in here is a great application to use, because there are no second-class apps in there. They're all amazing.
Absolutely. And they also have things in here like AppGrid if you want a better software store, Ubuntu Software Center, the old version, and Synaptic. And which I know is one of the things you always install on Ubuntu machines. You always install Synaptic, and that's just one click away. And now it's not about the fact that you couldn't input all these on one app line. It's more about the fact that I would like an idea for an app like this, and you can browse the Software Boutique, and it's available. Now it is a desktop. It is something really built for the Mate desktop, but it works on all versions of Ubuntu. And it's just such a great way to get software on a 16.04 rig and not have to worry about finding the PPAs, adding the key, updating your package cache, then remembering the package name that the PPA repo uses, typing that on the command line, hitting install. You can do all of that, and that works just fine. But if it's a new machine and you want to set up 15 things, that's a great way to do it. And it makes really Ubuntu a real simple setup process.
It does.
Maybe this is a good moment to talk about my biggest problem with Ubuntu. And I think I would ask that what I'm about to say, I would ask a lot of you to actually really seriously consider it and not just put up your defenses immediately. I would say when Ubuntu came onto the scene, one of the things that made Ubuntu great is they took Debian and they took the GNOME desktop And they nailed that 6-month cadence like nobody else. And they've delivered on it over and over. They nailed their release schedule so well that it's not even a story that they're on time. And it's a common story that Fedora is delayed. Not making it, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're 100%. I'm laughing because you're right. You're very right.
They have delivered on a consistent schedule now since they launched as a project. And one of the things they did is they created Linux for human beings. They created a Linux that was picked by people that had intention and people that had good taste to create a well-customized GNOME experience that just didn't suck. And one of the things that was great about Debian is you had apt-get, it was super easy to install software, and Ubuntu extended that even further by adding PPAs, and truly made adding software to Linux desktop easier than any other desktop distribution out there. This was 4 or 5 years ago. In that time, Canonical has been distracted by mobile, and a lot of things have changed. And other distributions have stepped up to the plate to make software installation even better and easier under Linux. To the point now that, in my opinion, Ubuntu is the hardest distribution to install software on that most common desktops use. The Fedora project has launched Copper and made it significantly easier to find and install software from all over the web via Copper. The OpenSUSE project has OpenSUSE Build and software.opensuse.org, where you can search for just about any damn package you want, and it's one click away. In the years that Canonical has been focusing on mobile, every single other desktop distribution has passed them by in ease and availability of software. In the review and preparation just for the segment in the top of the show, the pick segment, I had to go through, and I know this sounds ridiculous, 4 different modern applications that have recently had releases that I could find installations for SUSE and Arch, no problem. Every single one of them I could find for Arch. And only 1 out of 4 had a deb available and a PPA available for Ubuntu. Modern software is no longer released immediately for Ubuntu. Often it's because they have old GTK libraries, or it's simply just too much of a hassle. And for a new user, the process of installing software on Ubuntu versus OpenSUSE, Fedora, or even frickin' Arch or Gentoo. Even Arch or Gentoo is more cumbersome, more involved, and less available for the Ubuntu desktop. And in my estimation, having used all of these distributions and installed software for all of them intends to review on this show, Ubuntu is always the hardest and most cumbersome to get new modern software that's outside the repo installed on. And the only saving grace that Ubuntu has is that most package maintainers out there, most developers out there creating for Linux desktop, happen to create a deb out of obligation for their user base. Not as a reflection on how Ubuntu makes it easy to install software or how easy it is to make software available for Ubuntu, but as a reflection on the goodwill of the people creating the software that they make an Ubuntu deb available. And if it wasn't simply for that goodwill, software would be nearly impossible to install on Ubuntu that could be remotely updated and maintained as they release new versions that get updated with the rest of my system as part of my package manager. And even on this very install, I have 2 or 3 one-off deb files that I just simply downloaded off the internet and will never be updated with the rest of my system when all the other libraries around it get updated. It is simply the hardest distribution for the modern Linux desktop that competes in that space. It is simply the hardest distribution to install new desktop software on.
I agree with you to a certain extent. Certainly, if you're looking for when applications first get released, a lot of times, you're right, they're not available on Ubuntu. And you're right, they almost immediately propagate themselves in Arch. However, and this is where I think we fundamentally disagree, is that there are a lot of problems with software in Arch. They are correctable, they are troubleshootable, but there are fundamental problems.
Just for clarification, I'm not talking about ease of maintenance. I am not talking about how hard it is to set up your X server.
If you want a useless TeamViewer installation, you can get it installed on Arch, but it won't work.
Are you serious? I could in 15 minutes I could have a brand new Antergos installation here with TeamViewer, Chrome, Dropbox, everything installed with a single command.
TeamViewer doesn't work until you go through and manually enable some daemon that you have to first restart.
You can't conflate what developers are pre-setting up for Ubuntu with what Ubuntu is doing as a platform to make software available.
I understand that, but if your argument is that software is fundamentally easier to install on you said that you thought that software is easier to install on every other distribution other than Ubuntu, and I'm telling you that is true on a very large scale for a bunch of esoteric applications. But
I'm not esoteric. There were 3 app picks we threw away this week because you can't install them on Ubuntu.
Right, and how many people are using those apps?
Anybody who has a modern Linux desktop that wants to check out some of the greatest software available in open source.
I understand that, but they are not. Those are niche apps. Those are specific apps. In fact,
this show is for a niche audience. We are a niche group of users.
I agree that, but you're talking about all users. And so what I'm telling you is when I set
I'm saying what is obvious to niche users because we want. Where's the PPA for Simple Note? Where?
It's a deb. You go to their website and download a deb. Just like I
downloaded the Slack client, I had to go download the freaking deb.
Right.
There was no repo.
Just like Simple Note, but that's the exact same thing you would do on Windows,
no.
right?
Yeah. Oh,
I am simply saying that it is
okay.
I'm just saying that it is an accepted venue to get software for somebody publishing a file
and I'm simply saying
and
in
installing
2016,
it.
every other distribution out there that is relevant on the desktop has created a better system and a better platform developing modern, updated applications. And by the way, it comes down to not just trying out applications, but it's also important for user security and privacy.
I understand that, but there is a downside to that. Look at Lightworks, for example. I installed Lightworks on Arch, and then Arch updates and gives me a different version that I didn't want, and all of a sudden, I can't even open the stupid program. I can't I can't edit video on my laptop. Couldn't do that for 4 months.
What would that situation be?
And that wouldn't have happened on Ubuntu.
Because they are custom packaging it for Ubuntu and delivering
so it is easier to install programs like TeamViewer and Lightworks on Ubuntu.
But do you understand that if Ubuntu used a standardized way to deliver software, then it is very likely that Lightworks would work better on every other distribution on the planet?
Yes.
Because they would not be spending so much R&D on making it just work on Ubuntu.
Yes.
The problem is that developers like Google with Chrome and developers like who owns Lightworks?
EditShare.
Huh?
EditShare.
The thing is they have to spend a disproportional amount of time making sure that they can make a deb package available because they have to hand roll that like it's some sort of old Cuban cigar, and instead of mass producing something that they can make for Mac OS and for Windows and for every other Linux distribution.
Right.
And if Linux is barely worth your time to begin with, and 90% of your resources have to go into packaging for Ubuntu.
Yeah.
It actually screws all the other Linux.
I
if
agree with
Ubuntu, if they had just spent a little bit of time, like what if they had taken the PPA system and made it half as good as the OpenSUSE build service, or half as good as the AUR, or even just in a shadow of the Copper build system? What if they had taken all of the existing infrastructure they have with Launchpad and PPAs and the Ubuntu install base, and they had made a way for people to sustainably commit software to the Ubuntu platform, and it wasn't through this crazy go download a file off the internet like a Windows user, everybody would be better off. And just because developers like EditShare make a special magical deb for Ubuntu doesn't mean that Ubuntu is excused from having one of the hardest platforms for average end users for installing software and keeping it up to date and maintained.
But I get where you're coming from, and I agree that in a longevity of in a widespread thing, for the entire community, I think we'd all be better off if we're taking your approach. But that's not the world we're in right now. And the world that we're in is companies look for, when they want to port to Linux, they look for where are the majority of users. And whether you like it or not, the majority of users are on Ubuntu. So then they go to Canonical and they ask, how do we get our software on Ubuntu? And Canonical responds to them, and then they follow that process.
Here's the thing.
That process leads us to having Lightworks and TeamViewer and basically all the software that people actually want to use, like Google Chrome, available on Ubuntu. And it doesn't necessarily work on other distributions. And that's a problem.
It's only going to get worse. While part of me thinks the thing that could make Ubuntu 16.04 work for me in the long term is the fact that it's going to have snap packages. At the same time, things like XDG app are out there that would work across all distributions.
Right.
Things like app image are already out there. Software is already shipping, like OpenShot with app image. These things exist today, and snap packages are going to be, once again, something that is specific to Ubuntu, that is packaged specifically for this distribution, that will take time away from the other distributions. But the very fact that they are implementing snap package support, I think underscores my argument. They recognize that Ubuntu is a difficult distribution, that it is a moving target, and that snap packages are meant to solve this problem.
Right.
They're just a couple of years too late because it didn't dawn on them until they decided to create a fancy way to install software for a phone.
Well, I think that back when they came up with the deb and the .deb that you download, right? I think they were following a paradigm set by other operating systems, and I think that what you're seeing is that they are moving in the direction that you would like them to go, and I think that's a good thing. And I think that when that happens, like I said, ultimately, I think overall the community will benefit. But I just don't.
The Ubuntu community will.
I think everyone will.
I think. I don't know. Unless people can implement. Maybe people will implement snap package support. That'd be pretty cool. I look at this and I
guess this is the best way I can say it is I would rather have less software that works all the time, and when I sit down, especially software that I really need to get my work done, I'd rather have a distribution that 100% of the time I'm 100% sure I can open Lightworks, I can open TeamViewer. Those are the two that come to mind. I'm sorry to keep repeating
that's fair, but here's where I come down.
And I'd rather not have to another example that comes to mind: FAT support on Arch took me, or EXTFAT, whatever it was, took forever to, and that just worked out of the box on Ubuntu.
I think again we're conflating ease of use to administer and ease of software, but I'll end on this. What I want from my desktop operating system, and I don't care if it's Mac OS, Windows, or Linux, what I want is, hey Chris, you should totally check out this really cool new application. And what I want to be able to say, oh great, I'm running Ubuntu, that should be no problem. And because you sat in that room with me as we tried 4 different app picks. I was like, oh,
but even before
I can't install this, but if I was on Arch or if I was on SUSE, I could install it. And we went through 4 different apps in a row before we got to one that I could install on Ubuntu. Right. And at the end of the day,
one time.
You can talk.
I'm saying that's just one time that's happened.
I know, but do you or do you not run an Arch box at home to try out apps for
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm trying to tell you. That is just one time that you have experienced that particular thing that happens over and over and over again. Yeah.
Yes, and my point is, like, for me, ease of use is I found out something I want to do on my computer and I want to be enabled to do that thing. And a lot of times, because the answer is, well, you're running Ubuntu, you can't do it. Mm-hmm. If you're running Arch or you're running SUSE or you're running Fedora, you could try it out, and it would just be a couple of clicks. Mm-hmm. But because you're running Ubuntu, you can't do it. And I downloaded software, I compiled it, I installed it, I got it all set up, and I'm looking at it, I'm going, I can't recommend the audience do this.
Yeah.
And I scrapped it.
Right.
And at the same time, every single time I went and checked the AUR. Yep, it's available in the AUR.
Right.
It's got 20 votes. Like every single time. And my point is, it doesn't matter how easy it is to have Ubiquity not be able to erase your disk. It doesn't matter how easy it is to have the Software Center crammed into GNOME software. Mm-hmm. It matters that I can't install the apps that I want. Yeah. And I'm not crazy. It's a drop-down terminal. It is a new launcher to replace Synapse. They're not crazy esoteric applications. They are desktop applications being created by people today. That's not esoteric.
Today. They haven't been around for a while. If I was a
Windows user and that was a Windows application, no problem, I could download it. Yeah. And I think you can't forgive Ubuntu for it. You can say it's a lot of things. You can say it's a great server distribution. You can say it has a lot of support. It has a big community. But it's simply, in my estimation, no longer easy to install software on compared to the other distributions,
if you want access
even
to all
Windows or Mac.
Yeah, if you want access to all of the available applications, I would agree.
That seems like a huge paradigm shift for Ubuntu for me. That seems like we went from Ubuntu, everything's available, that's why you run Ubuntu, to, well, as long as you want to install...
That's not why I run Ubuntu, though. The reason I run Ubuntu is because I just want to know that certain things work.
All right. That's fair enough. And that's where we differ. Yeah. And I feel like I'm hoping that as 16.04 grows, the availability of snap packages closes that gap. So let's talk about just a couple of other things real close. Battery life on the Apollo has been about 6.5, 7 hours under Ubuntu. It's been great. Performance has been excellent. The new Unity, it's not really all that new, but Unity 7 has gotten to a point where it's pretty well refined. The search launches instantly. Everything works really as you would expect it. Once you customize the theme a little bit, I think it looks like an outstanding desktop. I really have no complaints with the way this thing looks at this point. I did initially with the default theme, but you just click a couple of buttons, install a couple of deb packages that you download off the web like a Windows user, and you are good to go. Sorry.
I
think it's a great desktop. Do you have any other takeaways?
I do, not necessarily on the operating system, but if I may, a couple follow-ups on the Librem. So first off, I've had a plethora of issues with Wi-Fi. It disconnects constantly. Sometimes it will show me connected, but I am connected to the Wi-Fi, but it shows an empty wireless icon. And having run 16.04 heavily on two different other computers and watching you run it, I have not seen that issue on anything other than this computer, and I definitely haven't seen the Wi-Fi disconnecting all the time. Second issue is the trackpad. I cannot disable tap to click, and I cannot enable two-finger scrolling, and I understand that's because the driver is only available with the operating system that they ship. So I can't use the laptop designed to run Linux on anything other than their operating system.
Yeah, so the trackpad on the Librem 15 under Ubuntu 16.04 just shows up as a PS2 device.
Yeah, which means no touchpad support, basically.
And no turn off tap to click. So Noah is using a trackball during the show right now. So, yeah.
I am not impressed.
So I want to just take a moment before we move on, and I wanted to talk about the different flavors of Ubuntu. So the software thing for me is sort of the big thing that stands out. But there is a large community out there that packages software for Ubuntu that sort of, lacquers over this particular problem. And then there are flavors of Ubuntu that really take it even further. And I'd like to show your screen, so I don't know if you have anything on there you want to clear off. But so I challenged Noah to spend some time with the Ubuntu Mate edition of Ubuntu 16.04 because that's what I spent the most time with was Ubuntu Mate. And so I switched over to Unity. He switched over to the Mate release. And Noah, I'm kind of curious of your takeaways. So I asked you, I basically said, set it up not for a client.
He told me I wasn't allowed to use anything other than this computer that we set up with Mate.
That's true.
Basically what he said.
And I said, set it up like for yourself, like you're going to use this computer for a year. And I'm curious what your takeaway was with the experience of Ubuntu Mate 16.04.
Here's the biggest thing. I've always liked Mate, right? But I think I came to a new realization. Previously, what did I tell you I thought Mate was best suited for?
Machines that are sort of headless, that every now and then need a GUI, or like an end user that doesn't need a high resources PC, or like a Pentium 4 that staff might sit down and enter in their tickets.
Appliance-like computers. That's basically what I see it as. And I have changed that opinion. And I basically changed that opinion because I think now what I am starting to see is this is very similar to, I think, what a lot of people like about the Mac desktop, which is that it's a very simple, elegant, clean desktop that has just enough pizzazz, just enough change from release to release. So like this Synapse launcher.
Yeah, this is something they spent some time on, integrating Mate functionality into Synapse. So you can type specific Mate functions or things like that, and the Synapse launcher understands what you're saying and can launch it. Do you have, go into the system menu there and look for Mate Tweak. Where is that at? Bring that guy up, because this is something really neat that they've done.
I don't know if I have it.
Oh, you should. I think so. Just look under, look for Mate.
Well, here, can I do this?
Can you type in Mate Tweak? Or try typing in Tweak and see what comes up. There you go. Yeah. So now go into the interface there, and you see how you have different interface options? Try dropping that down, and try out their new one, the Mutiny one, which is Mate's take on Unity. Do you see that there? Scroll up a little bit. Look for the Mutiny one.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, there you go. So now you see how, now minimize that window so you can see what it's done. Minimize Tweak. You see, you now have a very Unity-like Ubuntu Mate experience. So you can bring in some of the things you're familiar with standard Ubuntu, yet you're getting the resource leanness of the Mate desktop and the quickness. And you don't even have Compass turned on. So if you go back into Tweak there, Noah, go back there into Tweak. And no, not welcome. I think it's the bottom icon there. Yeah, go there. And then under Windows, perhaps, go into the Windows there. Yeah, so select Window Manager. You see that it's using Marco there? So you can GPU Compositor, and you can turn on. You've just now turned on the Compiz Compositor, and you now have 3D accelerated desktop windows. Real easy. See, now you're getting the animations. So now it's a lot like Unity, isn't it? It feels a lot like Unity.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, oh no, that is still. But the thing is that the Ubuntu Mate desktop started out. It originally appealed to me, like you said, for low-powered computers, Pentium 4s, the things that were basically trash. And then I decided I was going to try and repurpose them. And I was working with the school to get some of their computers repurposed. And I was like, we could implement this at the shop. And so we started taking computers and running Mate on them. And then I started running it on the Pi. And I'm like, so this could be like my end-all be-all desktop. And then after using it just now, I'm like, actually, for a person that didn't want the flashy pizzazz of Unity, that didn't want the flashy pizzazz of GNOME, Mate would be a really great choice.
Yeah, not only that, but so that's the one I spent the most time with. And to me, here's what I realized about it is the thing about Mate, and not so much about the Mutiny mode, but the thing about the standard Mate setup, Nothing is hidden from you. The UI is obvious. Any UI element that you need to interact with on the desktop is visible to you in a reasonable way at any time you need it. It's easy to figure out what windows you have on which desktop. It's easy to find any application installed without having to dig through pages and pages and pages and pages of menus. The Synapse integration makes it easy to quickly reconfigure your display. It is truly a fast, lightweight Ubuntu desktop that for an LTS, I think is the most compelling release, because Wimpy has rounded off a lot of sharp edges here with the Welcome Center, with the integration for GTK3 and support for client-side decorations, with the inclusion of integration of Synapse, and the Tweak application that allows you to quickly lay it out more like a Windows desktop, Mac desktop, Linux desktop, GNOME 2 desktop, Unity desktop, all with a single click, one-click compositor activation. It is all the advantages of Ubuntu 16.04 with some of the roughest edges smoothed over, real nice and smooth, and it's the same exact freaking distro you could run on a Raspberry Pi, and it's supported by an outstanding guy who is a great member of the Linux community. It's truly one of the best Linux desktops out there. It is a rock-solid distro with a great interface, a fantastic, enthusiastic community, tons of software availability thanks to that Welcome Center, and really, really reasonable thought-out defaults. The only thing I would change, honestly, is making Chrome the default web browser.
Oh, of course you would.
Yeah, that's really it, though.
Yeah.
It's good, man. It's really a good desktop Linux.
Meanwhile, somebody lost his show notes twice or 3 times last night for using Chrome.
Really? That's awful. That's awful. I really like the Ubuntu Mate desktop. In fact, this is how much I like it. I was thinking about things that got me really excited about introducing Linux to people way back in the day when I was first excited about Linux and really you've got to try this thing the way you are all the time still, even 10 years into it. Now I'm like, oh, you run Windows? That's quaint. Good for you. And I don't try to argue or convert people.
You don't convert pizza guys?
No, I don't.
At 3 in the morning when they're delivering pizzas and you're trying to build a computer?
If I was just this out there switch everybody kind of guy, Mate is the kind of Linux that Ubuntu Mate Linux is the kind that gets me super excited, because I can guarantee them a working environment that is very easy to understand. I can guarantee them that when they load it on their machine, it's going to run faster than the desktop they have on there already. And I feel like it's going to stick around for 4 years without breaking. There's not extensions that are going to break or plasmoids that are going to crash when I try to update the weather. It's just a solid, proven desktop that isn't eschewing the future. They've worked on GTK3 support. They're working on Wayland and Mir support already with fantastic progress. They're integrating the best stuff about Linux, modern desktop Linux, in a traditional environment. And what 16.04 is, it's Wimpy and the team having another couple of releases under their belt and really knowing how to put together a distro now, because they've done it a couple of times.
Right.
And it's everything from the website, it's clear to download, the commands to flash it to a flash drive are right there, copy and pastable. The download speeds you get are awesome. The torrents are web-seeded. So, it's literally everything from visiting the Ubuntu Mate website and understanding what you're getting and how to get it to installing it and using it, I think.
It's a first-class experience.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Yeah.
Absolutely. It feels like a distribution that's been around for a decade.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It really does.
It's
that
really
polished.
good, and it shows you how great the 16.04 base can really be when you really jazz it up. And what's great about the different Ubuntu flavors is you can be like me with a Unity desktop and pulling in some of your favorite packages from the Mate flavor, or you can be like Noah over here and pulling in some of your favorite things from the Unity desktop into the Mate flavor. So just because they're both part of the Ubuntu family means you don't have to have just one or the other. You can mix in your Mate with your Unity or Unity with Mate. Not like literally speaking, but like you are now using the Mutiny version.
Right. Which I will add that I did that because you told me to, and to demonstrate it on here. I actually don't want to use that.
But at the same time, you went to the same place to get your Simple Note packages. You went to the same place to get your Quazzle package. You went to the same place to get Chrome, right? Yep. And I went to the same place to get all of the same software, and I have a totally different desktop environment. And both of them are great.
Yeah.
Like Tony the Tiger would say. So while I have issues with some of the outstanding issues, like installing software on Ubuntu, they are already addressing it with the new software center that I think overall, on the whole, is an improvement. It's much faster and responsive, and it's more in line with what you get in other Linuxes, which is very nice when you're switching around.
Even if sometimes you don't know what version of the software.
Yeah, that's a bit of a bummer. I think Snap packages, while today aren't offering me any solutions, and you can install Snapcraft and you can create your own packages and you can look at the examples, and they've just updated Snapcraft, which is the tool to create Snap packages. While those show promise down the road, they're not here today. The ZFS support is in there, but it's not really available to me as an end user today. But all of these things have potential of developing and delivering during this actual release of Ubuntu. I don't feel like I have to wait till 16.10 to start using this stuff. I feel like I have to wait 3 to 6 months, and people are going to start creating this stuff for 16.04. It's just people have just gotten their hands on this thing, and once they start recognizing that Snap packages are a fundamental game changer, once people start deploying ZFS on their VPSs and on their data centers and all that kind of stuff, this is just going to become commonplace. And it's all going to, like, what I'm trying to get across here is, like, 16.04 is a great desktop today. Like, it legitimately is. Once you get everything set up and you do the bulk of all your software installation, it frickin' rocks. It's well performant. And on top of all of that, I truly believe 3 months and 6 months down the road, it's going to get even better.
Yeah.
And 14.04 genuinely did too.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, they smoothed out a lot of rough edges in 14.04. And, you know, that's saying something, because 14.04 was really nothing to scream about over 12.04. I mean, it was newer, and so you got a newer kernel, and so you got access to newer software. But beyond that, what really changed, you know? And this time, there are very specific things. I mean, we're trying to keep it tight today, and we're having a time wrapping up all the things that have changed in 16.04. So yeah, I agree. We can expect big things.
It's something that's taken me a month to wrap my head around, and it's something I think is going to take me another 3 months to fully take advantage of. My intention is to leave it installed right here on this machine for a while and see how it does.
Okay.
And I'll just keep it as long as I can with Unity and all of it. And I'm really, now that I have the bulk of my software installed, I'm pretty hopeful. The only thing that's really going to be a gotcha is, you know, about once a week, I try to do like a whole range of app picks, and I start getting grumpy. So I may reload it, but right now I'm sticking with 16.04. I think it's the best Ubuntu ever released. I really do.
Wow.
I think 16.04 is the best Ubuntu ever, and even though some of the things I need from it aren't here today, it has all of the fundamental technologies. This is an Ubuntu born post-Docker, post-ZFS, post-Snappy packages as a conceived thing. This is a LTS before everything changes. Everything. Unity 8, the Mirror display manager, all of that, display whatever, all of that is going to start changing in the next few releases. And this is sort of
our last stand.
Well, it's it's our last celebration of the Ubuntu desktop of yesteryear, and it's a damn good one. And for what like the things I talked about regarding software installation, that's not really new. That's just a meta problem for Ubuntu, not specific to 16.04.
And to be fair, it is also a problem that has grown over a long period of time, and we have reached a point where it has become, an unbearable hurdle that needs to be solved. Right, like 5 years ago, even I don't think we would have been having this discussion. So
well, yeah, the other distros have closed the gap in the meantime.
Right. But what I'm saying is that's a very recent development that's happened.
Either way, it's going to be my go-to distro for servers now. 16.04 by default will be the server OS I deploy going forward. Any system in the meantime that I expect to need in production for a while, I'm going to want to go with 16.04. On these two machines, I'm sticking with 16.04. I think it is a bang-up job, and not all of it is necessarily thanks to the work that Canonical has done. So, I mean, some of it definitely is.
I would say some of the most exciting parts isn't because of what Canonical has done. It's actually what the community has done.
Yeah, and some of it is, like Snap packages and things like that are thanks to the work they've done, but some of it isn't. And, they are definitely pushing the way forward with ZFS, and it's cool to actually see it implemented so soon. So it is a really interesting release with pretty much everything in there for Ubuntu haters and Ubuntu lovers. I think you're going to pull something out of it, and I think it's one of the most exciting desktop releases for Ubuntu in years. And if you really think, if you haven't tried it and you want something special, go look at the care and love that has been put into the Ubuntu Mate Edition. Part of me wants to say it's what Ubuntu would be today if Unity hadn't become a thing.
Oh, I think that... Wasn't the entire
kind of
driving?
But I mean, they actually nailed it. I mean, it's one thing to be a d-bag and a blowhard and say that, but it's another thing to actually deliver on that, and they've actually delivered on that.
Yeah, well, I think that was their goal, so that's good.
I think a lot of other distros out there would have tried it and they wouldn't have nailed it. So I agree, it's a good thing, and it's definitely worth your time to try it out in a VM or on a desktop. 2 different computers here. It's worked great.
That chat room. Who pointed that out? Who just pointed that out? JB Live 7 points out in the chat room that in previous editions of Ubuntu up until 16.04, there was some code that you could put in to move the buttons from the right side over.
Yeah,
the desktop.
it was a Metacity theme that they've now just hard coded into the window decoration.
Right, and so you can no longer. There's no, to the best of our knowledge, there's no way to move those buttons.
You can't move those buttons anymore. It's a bummer. I was like, you know what? I was trying to make it work. You know what? I think I'm going to change these buttons because I was really trying to set up for me for the long term. And I'm like, hey, no, I'm going to change the buttons around. Ha ha ha. Oh wait, you can't change the buttons. If that bugs you, maybe consider GNOME or Mate because you can change it on this. Just the Unity desktop. Also, I haven't mentioned a lot, but for 3 weeks I ran the Kubuntu edition, and the new Neon packages are out for 16.04. Kubuntu, or basically Neon now. The Neon desktop on Ubuntu 16.04 is just the best Plasma desktop experience out there. It is so solid. It is the latest version of Plasma put together by Jonathan Riddle. And if you want a KDE desktop and you want the best Plasma experience out there, you got to check out KDE Neon, built on top of 16.04 with the latest, freshest Plasma desktop packages. I think Neon and Ubuntu Mate are some of the best desktop distros out there, and they're both based on 16.04. I might still, at the end of the day, be an Arch guy, but I am super impressed.
Deep in your heart, although actually you only have one machine.
I've reloaded a ton of stuff for this review to Ubuntu. I mean, servers I left, but
not just the review, but even before. Well,
I've been leading up, because it takes a little while to warm up for me. I've been doing it for about a month, and I've been single-handed. I mean, every machine basically has gotten reloaded to 16.04.
Right.
I went all in. All right, that's the Linux Action Show's look at the new Ubuntu 16.04. And that brings us to the end of this week's broadcast. Now, Noah, before we go any further, I got a pop quiz for you. Say you wanted to have an excellent, out-of-the-box Linux experience. You didn't want to fight with your hardware at all. You just wanted to play with your new Ubuntu installation. Where would you go?
Can I call it? Oh, I know, System 76.
Hey, oh, that's right. System76.com, creators of machines born to run Ubuntu Linux. They make powerful computers and desktop laptops, tiny desktops, all in one, so the big towers. From small, light, thin laptops to big, huge desktop killers, System76 has the whole range, including servers. Noah, do you want to spill the beans or do you want to wait? Do you want to mention it or do you want to wait?
Come on,
Noah.
what would be more fun? We'll leave it.
Tease.
All right,
just tease.
All right, fine. There may or may not be a package that, and in great thanks to their actually, we never talk about their dashboard, but they actually have a sweet dashboard where when you make an order for a computer that I may or may not have done.
Oh, you're kind of giving away. That's not really so much a hint as it is telling exactly what you did.
I didn't tell him which one.
So Noah may or may not have ordered himself a new System 76 computer out of his own personal pocket. We don't pay for our computers that we get from System 76. He may or may not have ordered one because, let's be honest, they have some of the best computers out there for Linux.
Completely shipped, dude.
Oh man, God, I am legitimately so jealous that I wish they took Bitcoin, and I would try to hustle them to switch over to accepting Bitcoin just so I could get myself one. I am really super jealous. I've wanted that since the day I touched it. Anyway, System 76 has great computers that are. The nice thing about them is they take out the hardware variable. You always know that system's going to work with Linux. You can try out different distros. You're not going to fight with the hardware. You're just going to load Linux and everything's going to work. And having jumped through some hoops recently with some other hardware, that kind of stuff is huge. System76.com, desktops, laptops, tell them Linux Action Show sent you, and get yourself something nice. Now, Noah, speaking of System76.com...
Linux Fest Northwest is coming to Bellingham, Washington the weekend of April 23rd and 24th. Come say hi at the booth and don't forget to support Noah during the Linux Switch competition. Head over to meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting if you want to meet up with us. And don't forget the live Linux Action Show on the 24th. We hope to see you there at Linux Fest Northwest.
I'm really excited. Meetup.com/Jupiter Broadcasting. Noah versus Emma. The Linux Switch competition is nigh. If Noah wins, I got to shave my stash.
If
Noah
I
loses,
lose, then I gotta grow out all the fuzzies on my face.
And
tattoos.
A Vista tattoo on the head.
Didn't we decide 3? Me, Vista, and
did we? I will go for 3 if you want 3 Windows tats on your head.
I'm not confident. Yeah.
Okay, you're gonna go for 3 tats. So 3 tats on Noah's forehead. Plus, he's got to grow a beard, and he can't really grow a beard.
It's gonna look like pubic hair all over my
I
face.
want you to win, but I want you to win so bad that I'm willing to incentivize by shaving off the stash.
Yeah. Well,
So,
apparently all you have to do is order some Pizza Hut, and we get that party rolling, man.
we'll see. We'll see. So at Linux Fest Northwest, Noah and Emma will be squaring off to see who can convert the most people to Linux. We'd love to have you stop by and say hi to us at the booth. If you see us broadcasting or talking, don't feel afraid to walk up and say, hey, guys, it's okay. We're there to say hi to people. And we'll have a booth. You can come see us.
Unless it's Sunday between the hours of 10 a.m. and 1. Then
Yeah, we're probably, or
please don't
2. We're
bother
probably
us.
doing a show.
Yeah.
We'd love to actually have you show up and watch the show. Watch it in person. That'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And if you're working on something cool open source, why not stop by and tell us about it? We'll have the mic going. We'll be streaming probably all day Saturday and most of Sunday at jblive.tv. So even if you can't make it to Linux Fest Northwest, you can at least be there in spirit by hanging out in our chat room. And
Oh,
watching that
Emma
stream.
is in the chat room.
Oh, Emma busting it out in the chat room. Yeah, of course she was. She's watching earlier when she hacked our live stream and
Yeah.
took us off air for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think the competition is getting nervous. Hacksaw Emma brought us down during the pick segment earlier today. So if you notice, the top of the show looked kind of like crap and didn't sound very good. That's
It's all
because
Emma's fault.
Emma totally logged into our network using a remote exploit and totally hacksaw our live stream. Hey, we don't have emails or calls today because,
Noah screwed up.
and our call screener is about to get picked up in Lady Jupes for a road trip, so he's busy. But I did want to do one follow-up story that you might have expected us to cover this week, but I just didn't cover it because it just didn't smell right. It went all over the internet, all over Hacker News, all over Reddit. That IT guy that accidentally RF'd his entire drive and took 1,500 clients offline
Yeah, I heard about that.
turns out to be a fake.
Yeah, well,
Just a
big
huge troll.
surprise. Just a
And
huge
you know what? To Alan's credit in TechSnap, Alan said, you know what? This smells like a troll to me. Because you actually, oh, shoot, we don't have the footage, but you actually tried to wipe.
Why don't I have that here?
So we were like, well, we're going to reload some of these machines anyway. So Noah brings up a terminal on his
On my main computer, and I'm
Yeah.
like, well,
RM.
Alan says I can do this, so I should trust him because Alan knows Linux.
So RM-RF you have to do -- no preserve root or something like that. And
Yeah.
you didn't do that just to
Right.
see what would happen.
Yeah.
And it didn't work, did it?
No.
Yeah. That's the thing is Linux has actually had protection built into preventing you from deleting your root since like 2005. They added that to the RM command. So you couldn't actually do it. Turns out to be a huge troll. So if you saw that story this week and wondered why we didn't talk about it in the news segment, that's because it turns out to be totally bogus. So there you go.
Good answer.
Yeah. All right. So if you want to email the show, go to jupiterbroadcasting.com/contact and send us in some emails. Or why not submit content, an open source project, or just give us feedback on Lucky 413. Go over to linuxactionshow.reddit.com and put your thoughts in the thread. And don't forget our live shenanigans next week, and we'll be at one of the largest Linux fests in the world at Linux Fest Northwest 2016, streaming it live at jblive.tv and shaking your hands if you can make it in person.
On Linux.
I might shake your hand even if you're not running Linux. But it
No,
might be
no,
a
no,
judgy
no,
shake.
no, no, no.
Like,
We're- no,
I like one of
we're
these.
streaming on Linux,
Oh.
and you can shake their hands when they
Yes.
come to see us streaming.
Assuming we
on
actually
Linux.
get the computers to boot.
Well,
that,
no, we have the streaming rig for the.
that sounds like a
production.
cop-out. That sounds like a cop-out. All right, everybody, thanks so much for tuning in this week's episode of the Linux Action Show, and we'll see you right back here from Linux Fest Northwest next week. I think today's the day I switched to shorts, and I don't have any shorts. Today's the day, and I don't have any shorts.
Congratulations on switching to shorts, except not switching to shorts. Oh my. You could go pencilless.
Too warm. Yeah, too warm. Yeah, I'm tempted to just take my pants off. I'm so hot.
Somebody else suggested that.
My back's all sweaty. All right, don't look. No, I'm taking my pants off. I'm too warm. I gotta do a show. All right, there we go. Boxers only. Oh, that's a lot better, actually. The pants are officially off. All right, there we go. That feels good. No, you're scooting a little bit. No. All right, I'm gonna put my pants on now. No, don't quit looking at my dick, Noah. Okay, that's a little better at least. There we go. Thank you, babe.
Next time I'm remoting in from out there.
Yeah. Woo, that's a lot better. Okay.
Well, I'll say.
Okay. All right, now I can do a show. All right.
Oh, good.
Now, are you hearing that fan, or do you think it's okay to leave that fan
I
going?
think it's worth it to not have to.
All right, are you ready to start?
Even the chat rooms feels bad.
Hey,
for me
chat
for
room,
you
please
abusing
bang.
me.
Please bang suggest. We need to get going here.
I suppose that's my fault for slacking off, screwing around, not paying attention, right?
Yeah, quit fucking off, Noah. What's that? Did you do that? What? You see why we can't get started? This is why we can't get started, because you keep screwing around.
I didn't do that.
Dreaming.
Ubuntu with all the
Ubuntu,
software
Christmas.
available.
Yeah, that would be nice. Just like the Arch user repo.
That was one of the better ideas you've had all weekend.
What, move the AUR to Ubuntu?
Yeah,
I know, that would be
somebody
great.
should get on that.
All right, here we go. Popey, we love you. We have to say crazy things so that way you can sound reasonable and intelligent in Linux Unplugged. If we didn't give you fodder to bounce off of.
Nobody likes Unity. Kidding.
Nobody uses the Software Center. Worst distro ever. Actually, I think single-handedly trashed it and complimented it. Like,
But I
there's a
think
little
that's what
bit.
makes it a good review. We
Yeah.
brought up both the best and the worst.
Hey, there are a lot of distros we review on this show that we wipe as soon as the show is over. That's
Yeah,
the thing.
like OpenSUSE.
Oh, where's the? There it is.